Just to get you to return to the Hindu conception, and we're going to do Hindu metaphysics from next week, and we'll look at the arguments for the self, for the soul hypothesis then. But what I want to point out is some of the influences of later that Buddhism had on Hinduism. As I said before, you know, Hindus and Buddhists were fighting for the political space, fighting for the influence in the courts. There were lots and lots of debates. And one of the reasons that Hinduism was losing its effect because of all the caste distinctions, you know, because of all the caste distinctions. So the lower caste, the people belonging to the lower caste, especially the lowest caste, the Shudras who were supposed to do all the hard work, even though there's possibility of liberation and all of that, it's a pretty bad existence. And, you know, always being treated badly by other people, not being allowed to go to temples, not being allowed to, you know, participate in weddings, across, and, you know, no weddings allowed across castes. Sometimes Brahmins and Kshatriyas, the two top castes, there would be some intercaste marriage, but not, you know, the Kshatriyas would never marry with the business community or with the Shudras. That was, you know, the lowest community. So intercaste marriage, oh, I mean, you feel oppressed, right? So it was very attractive for the lowest caste to be, you know, to go into, to be transformed into Buddhists, because at least in that community you're accepted. You're accepted as an equal. For the Buddhists, this was this important thing. Everyone's equal. There's no caste distinction. You're part of the community. You're part of the Sangha. You're the same as any other caste. I mean, that's true with Christianity as well. Once you are, you know, part of the fold, you are equal. That's so in Islam as well. Hinduism is the only, you know, post-axial religion in which you have these caste distinctions. In all the other religions, you know, once you're part, once you're in, everyone's equal. Everyone's equal in Islam, everyone's equal in Christianity, everyone's equal in Buddhism. And this was very attractive to people. So even though, you know, the Hindus had influence over the kings, and so on, the Brahmins had influence over the kings, the Buddhists were gaining a lot of currency because the lower caste found it very tempting. You know, isn't it nice to be accepted as an equal in the community? Who wouldn't want to convert to a different religion? I mean, what does Hinduism give me? Hinduism gives me the possibility of moksha, but it also gives me an awful life. Buddhism gives me the possibility of nirvana too, you know, in a different way, and a possibility of being accepted as an equal. What will I do? I'll become a Buddhist, right? And so that's what people were doing. And also, you know, the Buddhist doctrines seem attractive to some of the kings, so the kings were also converting, and Hinduism was losing its currency. So smart Hindus, you know, you have to give it to them. They came up later, Hindus. There's this famous thinker in about the 1st century AD called Shankar, and we'll look at his arguments. He's the founder of one of the Hindu schools, the later Hindu schools, called the Advait Vedanta. Advait means non-dual. Vedanta, it comes from Veda, you know, the person who sort of focuses on the Upanishads. And this is the important, you know, twist that he makes in the Hindu way of thinking. They say, yes, there is distinctions, you know, in the worldly existence. Yes, you know, we see differences, we see plurality, and we see distinctions, but that's only an illusion. The whole world is an illusion. You get that in the Hindu theory, all distinctions. In effect, we are really one, because in effect, you know, we are really one with the ultimate principle, that is Brahman. So that's his theory of non-dualism. So this is how he does it. Shankar has these 3 levels of reality. One is the level of illusion, right? We do sometimes take things, we perceive things as real when they're not. Imagine you're walking in the desert. You see a mirage. You're very thirsty, and the sun shining on the sand looks like a bit of water there. And you go towards that, and you find it's just a mirage. There's really no water there. Or, all kinds of illusions we have. You see your tower at a distance. It looks round. Really, when you go closer, you find it has sharp edges. All kinds of perceptual illusions we have. And the other famous example used by the Hindus is in the night, you're walking in the forest, you step on a rope, and you go, ah! You think it's a snake. Just the feel of that on your bare foot feels like a snake, and you're really scared in the forest, but that's just an illusion, right? The Hindus say, look, our senses often deceive us, and through perception we have all these distinctions, and we see all these people being different from us. Really, there is ignorance, just as there is ignorance, at the root of perceptual illusions. There is ignorance at the root of worldly illusions. This whole world is an illusion. In effect, we are all identical with one reality, Brahman. Everything is explained in terms of, I know it's a very mystical doctrine, but that's his way of getting around this. So they say that, yes, these distinctions are there, but they're only apparent. Once you become liberated, you realize you are one with the ultimate reality. We all are really one. So their way of getting around it was saying that these distinctions, these caste distinctions, are really an illusion, and there is no reality to them. In effect, we are all equal. Ultimately, we are all equal. So it was getting to the Buddhist sort of doctrine at some level, but not denying the empirical world. They call that the Vihavarika Satta. That means, the transactional world. In the transactional world, in order to function as a society, we need to have these distinctions. But in effect, we really are all equal. That did lead to some change in attitude, how people treated each other. But, they really sort of got in Buddhism through the back door, if you like, to deny all these distinctions, these caste distinctions, as having any ultimate reality. In fact, saying all people are one, all plurality, all distinctions are really only an illusion. That's just getting, the Buddhist picture back on board. So they had the three levels of reality they called the Pratibhasika Satta. These terms are there. That's the level of illusion. Then the Vyavaharika Satta, which is the level of transactional reality, and then the Paramarthika Satta, which is the ultimate truth. And at the ultimate level, we are all one. That's how the world really is. That's why moksha is important to get, because moksha is this kind of self-realization that reveals to you that you are one with reality. And of course, the other two levels are just, an illusion. We have to get rid. And how to get rid of this illusion? They say, the causal condition for this illusion is ignorance. Just as we are ignorant about the nature of the world, and that's why we are often deluded or have illusions, so we're deluded about, these distinctions. In reality, in effect, we are really all one. So they didn't want to give up. They didn't quite want to give up the way we behave, the way we live. But they said that's just for society to function harmoniously. The ultimate truth is that we are all one. So they really took on the Buddhist doctrine to some extent. And that really helped. That really helped the Hindus get, more following and more stability in the society. In fact, so much so, most parts of the Indian subcontinent, what is really the birth of Buddhism, which is in central India, Buddhism was wiped out of there. The kings became Hindus. People, went back to the Hindu way of life. I mean, it was always the traditional way of life. It always had that, momentum, that force that you're born in it. Buddhism, after it stayed that's what they say, traveled east and it traveled south, and it stayed in Afghanistan and all that. But in the birthplace of Hinduism, which is now, kind of central India, birthplace of Buddhism, which is now central India, it was really wiped out because of this reason that the Hindus appropriated whatever they thought was attractive about the Buddhist into their own theory so as not to lose a following. So what you also get, kind of the moral communitarianism back into, in effect, we are all one. But there still remain some important differences, between the Hindus and the Buddhists. I mean, at one level of abstraction, you can think of both Hinduism and Buddhism making the same claims. So I've got these 4 claims on the handout. So on the second paragraph under Buddhist influence on the later Hindu philosophy, for both the Buddhists and Hindus, plurality and distinctions lose significance. Everything and everyone is one in essence, which is either the eternal soul, according to the Hindu, or impermanent elements. The Buddhists will say they're just impermanent elements. The Hindus will say that there is just the soul substance. That's what really is, and the soul is identical with the ultimate reality, which is Brahman. So if you think at this level of abstraction, what are the Hindus and the Buddhists saying? We need to distinguish between what is permanent and what is impermanent. The Buddhists are going to say, you reject the permanent because the permanent is not real. It's only the impermanent which is real. The Hindus are going to say, you reject the impermanent because the only thing that is real is the permanent. Both of them agree that we need dispassion towards the fruits of action here and in heaven. Both of them agree that selfish desire is the root cause of suffering. We need to get rid of passion and enjoying the fruits of our action. That kind of selfishness, neither the Hindu nor the Buddhist will do it, will want it. Accomplishment of means of discipline such as calmness. Both believe in meditation, both believe in physical, discipline, leading a disciplined life, leading an ascetic life. So it's very much a matter of, keeping control of your mind and body. This is very important. And to have a longing for liberation. It might be moksha or it might be nirvana. So there's lots and lots of commonalities. There's a distinction between permanent and impermanent. There is, a denial of selfish desires. That's going to lead you astray. We have to, we don't have to be motivated by what we want for ourselves. Kind of mental and physical discipline, either through meditation or through yoga, or a combination of both. And the 4th point is a longing for liberation. The only reason why you might want to believe the Hindu or the Buddhist doctrines is that, the end that is described by them, the goal of life, if you like, is really worth pursuing. But that said, there are important differences between the two. I've already mentioned one difference, that, according to the Hindus, what is ultimately real is the permanent elements, the soul, and next week you will see the arguments why the soul is the only thing that is real, while all the impermanent element needs to be rejected. And there's very interesting arguments against the Charvaks, a dialogue with the Charvaks, which is worth looking at. But for the Buddhists, the only thing that is real is impermanent. Anything that is permanent is without a cause, and it's not real. Another important difference to keep in mind before we end this discussion of ethics is to realize that the Hindus leave out, all emotions, positive as well as negative, greed, joy, lust, anger, or love, kindness, sympathy. All of those things are rejected by the Hindus. By the Buddhists, not so. The Buddhists want to leave in the positive emotions. In fact, a lot of Buddhist practice, a lot of, stuff that you learn through meditation is about inculcating positive emotions. So the Buddhists say the emotions have a role to play in motivating, but it's only the positive emotions. We have to inculcate positive emotions and get rid of negative, selfish emotions. Whereas the Hindu says, get rid of all emotions, because emotions will always lead you astray.